Hi, I'm Tony Braun, and welcome to today's session on advocating for and selling assistive listening solutions. Teams at Wave. Calls roll into our offices here in Minneapolis every day from people around the world looking for information on what is necessary either for their own venue or a project they're working on to satisfy accessibility requirements for those with hearing loss. As those discussions evolve, people often realize that an assistive listening system is not just about ticking the box to say their venue is compliant, but really coming to a realization that an assistive listening system is an essential part of creating an inclusive experience that everybody can enjoy. So as we reflected on the value of those conversations, our team decided to create today's session and bring in some expert guests to help us spread the word on a little broader scale. As I said, I've spent about 25 years in the AV industry and 10 years with this organization, and I hope you find today's content useful. Before we jump in too far, a couple of housekeeping items. So please note that today's session is being recorded. Your microphones and your cameras will be off as a participant, but you can use the Q&A function at the top of your screen to ask questions as we go. So there's a team of folks here at Williams who are going to do our best to field those questions throughout the webinar today, and then we may try and address a few of those later in the session. I'd also ask that everybody stay around to the end if you can, and we're going to offer you exclusive access to a handbook we've created on navigating assistive listening systems and all the factors that go into selecting the right technology. So what is it we're going to cover today? So as advertised, we're going to cover these topics. Maybe not in this particular order, but we really want to talk about what is the need for an assistive listening system? Why do these regulations and requirements exist? How do you assess a client's needs and select the right technology? What objections do we sometimes encounter in that process? And then look for things like the pitfalls that you might run into or things to consider going into a project, and even overlooked opportunities. So those are all the topics that I want to tap into our expert guests today to share with you. So let me start with introducing Ben Steinitz. Ben is the Senior Engineer for Building Systems and Communications with the National Theatre in London. And Ben has been with the National Theatre for over a decade. I think you told me 14 years, Ben. And he really is responsible for optimizing all of the production-based sound and video equipment in the venue. So Ben is here to share from a venue's perspective how he and others look at the importance of an assistive listening system. So welcome, Ben.
Hi. Thanks very much for inviting me.
Thank you for being here. And our next guest is James Gast. James is the president of Caden Technical Sales based here in the central U.S. James is a 30-year veteran of the AV industry, a recording audio expert, and has worked as part of the Williams extended team as one of our manufacturers reps for at least a decade now, and has done a great job working with integrators all over the country to help them assess the needs of a particular venue and guide them through what it takes to get this technology properly implemented. So thanks for being here, James. I appreciate it. All right, very good. So before we jump into the questions for our guests today, we're going to do a quick poll because we'd like to learn a little bit more about you as our audience. So the poll should come up on your screen here momentarily, and if you could let us know, do you manage a specific venue and are interested to hear about what's required? Are you a systems integrator looking for the details on how to properly install one of these systems, or are you more on the consultant design and specify side or something other? So if you could weigh in on that question. Those of you who are interested to see the results, I believe you can see those by clicking on the chat window in the upper right hand corner. So I see we've got a few venue managers here today, but largely the audience is here to from a perspective as an integrator or a designer specifier. So welcome all. Very good. So at this point, you're going to see your PowerPoint go away. We're going to just jump into some questions and learn from our experts today. So one question we often get, and I'll lead off with this one, is why do all these regulations around assistive listening exist at both a national and a federal level, depending on where you're at? I wanted to share a statistic that might surprise some of you. So according to some recent information from the World Health Organization, they report that nearly 20% of the global population live with some degree of hearing loss. You do the math on that, that's over 1.5 billion people. And with prolonged exposure, especially in the younger generation who are wearing earbuds on a regular basis, that noise exposure is driving that statistic up significantly to 2.5 billion projected by 2050, and that's people will have some measurable form of hearing loss. So this is something that's going to continue to develop and evolve, and something we should be thinking about in every public space that we look at. So with that in mind, I'm going to send the first question your way, Ben, because I would like people to hear right away, as a venue, as a historic venue like the National Theater, how does your organization and your team think about making the venue an inclusive space for all?
Well, it's something that's been worked very hard on over the 18 years I've been at the National Theatre, and it has changed over that time. We're now at the point where we can offer audio description and signed language performances. We caption our performances, so that's text on screens, but we also do closed captioning and offer head-up glasses that people can wear. We alter our performances so that they can be chilled, which is allowing people to leave the auditorium and enter the auditorium and make noise whilst they're in the auditorium. And relaxed, which is that version, but also we change some of the production to make it less stimulating for certain people. And we also do dementia-friendly performances. And then the building itself, well, yes, we try and make it as accessible as possible from a physical access point of view. The foyer is as open as we can make it throughout the day. And it actually becomes a bit of a remote office for quite a lot of visitors. We see a lot of people just working out there. They like our foyer so much.
Beautiful, thank you. And you shared a little bit with me in a prior conversation that about who's using these systems, right? Sometimes we think about it as those who are specifically have hearing loss, and that being this figure somewhere up to 15 to 20%. But you shared some information with me about that's not the only part of your audience that uses the system.
No, you're absolutely right. Yes, we get reports for each of our performances, and one of the columns in those reports includes comments on the access. And we've been really pleased to see reports about people who don't consider themselves to have hearing loss of any kind, but I have used the systems we provide, and in this case it's infrared headsets, and have absolutely loved it and found it's transformed the performance for them. Some people have said they didn't even realize it was a thing that they could just collect and have for free. So that it's changing people's experience. People we have comments about people saying that they didn't realize how much they were missing until they put the headset on.
That's awesome. Any other specific feedback from your guests that have used this maybe for the first time?
I had a little look through the reports. I'm just going to scan through people saying that they're life-changing and transformative, so much better than any other theatre, and it transformed his experience in the second act when he actually went and collected one. Someone who's from RADA was really impressed with what we do. First-time users talking about how spectacular they are. The fact that people were shocked that we were offering them for free, and saying how transformative it was. people saying that they're the best across all London theatres. We had a couple from New York saying that ours are superior by a mile to what they're used to. So one lady was so happy with the headsets that she wanted to kiss the access usher. Fortunately, they didn't. But that's the kind of feedback we get. So someone with tinnitus said that it was really useful for the times when the performance was at its quietest. So it really does help in all sorts of different ways. And it's always pleasing to get to read these reports, and which are consistently positive.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that, because again, so often people think of these as a just for a certain segment of the audience, but it really can be much more than that, and that's really what our mission here is to make communications easier in all kinds of environments, but make spaces that people can enjoy equally. So again, these are the reasons, and I wanted Ben to share that, because these are the reasons that these regulatory requirements exist. Some of the first ADA laws in the US came into place not until 1990 under the jurisdiction of the Department of Justice and something called the Accessibility Guidelines, or ADAG. And then they saw an update again in 2010, went into effect in 2012 under the Standards for Accessible Design. So that's where the ADA drives this stuff, but we have guests joining this session from all over the world. And this applies to many countries have similar legislation. So the United Nations, for example, has something called the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, or CRPD, was enacted in 2006. The European Union has the European Accessibility Act. The UK has the Equality Act of 2010. Canada has Accessible Canada. Germany, Australia, all of which have regulations and audit these things to make sure that we are satisfying the need that Ben just talked about. So, James, I want to kick it over to you next, if I could.
Okay.
When you meet with a venue integrator that's taking on a project and maybe hasn't been involved in the assistive listening portion of a product before, how do you, in your own words, explain the need for and the requirement for these assistive listening systems?
Well, usually I'll start with actually a conversation. What is the requirement? What is the facility? What are they doing? Of course, we just talked about how many people have hearing loss throughout the world. So we know there's a certain segment of people that would benefit from a hearing assist system of some sort. So it's usually explaining to them, to get the entire experience, to get the full experience for everyone involved that's coming through the doors. It is very important to actually look at the facility and figure out some type of system that would work for that. So that's usually, and that will lead usually to the ADA laws. What are the actual laws? What do they talk about? What do they require? What do they not require? That usually, once we talk through that at that point they'll see the benefit of the system. Of course, yes, the laws, but more than that, it's the people that's walking into the facility. You want to accommodate as many people as you can. That's the reason, one of the main reasons we had the facility in the first place, right? So if you're not able to accommodate everyone walking in, that's a pretty bad thing. So yeah, so once we talk about that, we figure the need out, that's when we start talking about the different technologies and the things involved.
And each country has its own nuance to the requirement. But speaking specifically to the ADA, really the way it's defined is that any assembly area or area that is open to the public, and I'm using the words straight from the ADA here, where audible communication is integral to the use of the space, which generally means they have an audio system, a PA system of some type, and there's fixed seating of 50 or more. Those are kind of the triggers to say they are now required to meet the standard, right? If you want to look into the specifics of this in more detail, our team would be happy to help, but you would be looking for sections 219 and section 706 that outlines all the technical requirements as well as what are acceptable technologies. Those are generally anything radio-based, so FM systems, infrared, and hearing loops are all part of what the ADA sees as acceptable technology, and that radio portion can extend to other things like audio over Wi-Fi. So there lots of different things can fall under that radio transmission as long as you're making an effort to meet the needs of those who need the system. So want to come back to you, Ben, and shift to the topic of assessing the needs. So when the theater was looking at implementing some of the things you talked about, or we'll say specifically the audio assistive listening system, what technology was selected and what were the factors that went in to making that selection?
We looked at all of the products you were just talking about, and the radio side of things, we even stretched as far as in-ear monitoring, professional in-ear monitoring, which is a product that some establishments use for their assisted listening. So yeah, we were looking at radio, induction loops, infrared. Wi-Fi has been a thing we looked at more recently. The considerations for our building, one main one is the fact that it's a multiple space facility, so that there are 3 theatres. There are lots of other spaces in which we promote the assistive listening, as an option in those spaces. So it's important to us that they could coexist in the building without any interference between the 2 of them, or any risk that someone might end up listening to the wrong thing. So we were really keen to choose a system that was easy to manage in that regard, make sure that as soon as somebody walked into the room, they had the sound that we wanted them to have. We were looking at the infrastructure of the building when we were deciding what to go for. So we were thinking about how we would distribute our system and how we would manage it on a day-to-day basis. We were looking from the point of view of what we're issuing to the customers, how we can manage those, because we actually own about 200 headsets when I last checked on our asset database. So there's quite a lot to manage. I've got a picture actually, which will appear hopefully on in a second of our storage of those headsets. And we also had to consider the fact that in the foyers, we don't actually have a fixed location where we issue the headsets. So we had to consider in the system how we would get the headsets from the storage area where they're charging and bring them out into the foyer and issue them. And most importantly, allow the customers to test them in this portable location. So we also made a custom battery-powered portable tester, which has got a little Williams transmitter attached to the top of it. It was key, so in terms of a management point of view, that the equipment is shared across the theatres. So we wanted to make sure that again that that was manageable for us, so we wouldn't have different systems in different theatres. So we wanted to try and keep consistent with the products that we offered in each theatre. What else have I noted down as the next thing for us was looking at the products out there. So we ended up with going for an infrared product for the theatres. It has many advantages for us. We're not fighting all of the other radio use that we have in the building. We're not fighting all the other radio use from everyone's devices as they walk into the space. And I'm sure anyone who's actually got a spectrum analyzer out and had a look at that can see quite an increase in the noise floor as soon as all of those mobile phones arrive with all their different transmitting and receiving frequencies. So infrared has a big plus for us there. It's also completely secure in the room, in that as soon as you walk out of the room, you don't get the signal. So that's the direction we went down. And so we bought into the Williams headset, which was an RX20, which is a 2-channel headset, which allowed us to do audio description, which is one of the access things we like to provide. And so we found a good location to store all of those, lots of 200 headsets all in one place. And then we also installed induction loops in the 2 larger theatres. We're a 3-theatre building, and the 2 largest have got all the seats covered with installed under the carpet induction loops. So one of the other things we're really keen on here is not just restricting what we're offering to a specific facility. It's for us, it's not about ticking the box in terms of the regulations about what we should be providing. We really want to create a fabulous experience for our users as soon as they walk into the building, right to the end of the performance. So the induction loop is aimed primarily at those who've got the telecoil switch on the hearing aids, and the headsets can be used by anyone who wants one, essentially. We're now also considering augmenting both of those with Auracast technology, which is the latest Bluetooth transmission technology. We haven't decided what products we're going to go with there, but we're currently in the process of seeing products and trying them out and working out how they behave in our RF environment. So yeah, there's a lot to think about when you're choosing the product, and yeah, the venue itself does have an impact on that. For us, our building is a bit of a concrete box, so everyone's devices really try very hard to talk to the mobile phone masts when they're in our spaces, and so right. We're really fighting the noise floor there. And then, but the other advantage is that we're in a concrete box, so we don't get interference on our equipment from external outside the building. So. And then we're rewiring our theatres, and we're thinking about what cabling we're going to put in and where we're going to put it. So again, the product we chose that transmits the infrared transmits it over Cat5 or Cat6. So we can use those tie lines for all sorts of different functions, including the infrared, rather than having a single bespoke coax, which is what we used to run to specific locations in the building, and having nowhere else that we could put our radiators. Hope that answers that.
Yeah, it does. Thank you. There's a lot to think about is the point there, and you brought up some really good ones. I want to tap into one thing here to go one level deeper, Ben, on something, and then James, I'll come back to you with a similar question. Sometimes people hear about infrared equipment that you mentioned, and there is a perception that is very much line of sight, and that you're going to have areas or gaps in coverage in a particular space. One of the pictures that you shared with us and that came up on the screen a little bit earlier was the placement of the different infrared emitters. Can you talk about the kind of coverage you're able to achieve? One of the things that is always a kind of an aha moment for us is when people come and say, "Oh, we're not interested in infrared. It's got to be line of sight, and that's too hard to do." What they don't maybe consider is they haven't looked at the technology for a while and how much better and brighter the LEDs have become in order to really flood a space for great coverage. So if you have any commentary on that, that would be great.
Yeah, sure. So I should point out that we have had infrared in the building since before I started 18 years ago. Before this, we bought the Williams system. It was the old Sennheiser system, and they had 10-watt radiators and headsets that actually kind of look very similar to the new headsets we've got now. And we always, ever since I've been here, we've always tried to fire at our audience for multiple locations with the infrared. And for me, that is vital to ensuring that that we can provide as good a user experience as possible, given that we're working with a line of sight system. I mean, yes, you will get some reflection off surfaces, but in our environment, which is theatre, most of our services are designed not to reflect in that way, so we can't rely upon that. So yeah, the slides that showed up earlier, it might be worth showing them again, actually. There's arrows I've drawn onto the pictures which show the locations we're firing at the audience, and we've got the two sides of that's it. There we go. So this is our largest theatre, and we're firing from the two sides of the stage on where we can fit the radiators there, but we're also firing from a radiator mounted right under the centre cluster, directly down at the centre, the front few rows of the audience, because the angle that we're firing, the best position for the radiators gives a very tight angle for the front rows. So in order to ensure that very tight angle doesn't result in a loss of signal at certain moments, or when your neighbour moves forward or backwards in their seat, we're augmenting it with the signal from the centre cluster there. And as you can see, all the beams are overlapping. So we're both sides are firing across the full auditorium in order to try and make sure that any headset in any seat has got a nice set of options in terms of what signal it's getting. One thing we noticed with the system we bought was that when we're doing this kind of thing with the signals overlapping, your cables have to be within about 40 meters of each other in length. I wouldn't like to say scientifically what was going on, but it's some kind of phase cancellation was going on, where when our cables were, say, 40 meters on one side and 100 meters on the other side, we would get weird sort of dropout situations, even though we were in very good signal coverage. So we learned to deal with that with a very crude way of just adding some cable to one side to make them the same length. And that got rid of the problem. It was a journey we went down, but we got there in the end. So it's something to bear in mind. And as far as I'm aware, that's not a product-based issue. That's by virtue of the delivery format for any infrared product.
It's physics, really, right? I mean, the audio's got to get to the emitters at about the same time in order to be able to broadcast it. So, spoken like a true veteran there in terms of the things that you learn as you go through projects like this, and exactly why we wanted you to share some of those things today. So kind of going back to the question, I'm going to come to you now, James. What are the factors that an integrator or a designer specifier needs to think about? Ben referenced several. How many spaces are we covering? How easy or difficult is it going to be? What's going to be required to manage the equipment? Ease of use, the infrastructure, the security, or if there's security needed in the space. You shared some thoughts with me earlier about considering the audience as well. So can you talk a little bit about that and any other things that come to mind for you that an integrator or a designer specifier should keep top of mind as they think about picking the right technology for a space?
Yeah, of course. Okay, so what Ben was saying earlier, I do the same thing. I walk into a space, I'm looking at the space, I'm trying to figure out, okay, I'm looking at the size of the building, the facility itself, how the building is made. Was this building built in the last 20 years? Was it built in the last 200 years? That can all change the way that we look at what type of system is going to work best, or what types of systems are going to work best in a certain environment. When I'm also asking about the people who are using the facility. Now, if you have a number of people who are in the younger people, 20, 30, 40 years old, their requirements may be completely different and are different than someone at an older age.Maybe they're, the 70, 75-year-old may not be as up to date on technology. So maybe we talk about more of a Wi-Fi based system for the younger crowd, where maybe a traditional loop or even an FM system might work better for the older group. So figuring out what that is. What is the facility being used for? Is it being used for speech, music performance, theatrical? That can also play into how we use the system and what kind of systems we're going to use. Security, you talked about that. Yeah, so there are a number of reasons why we would want to make sure it's a secure environment, whether it's like a court or something like that. How close in proximity are the other rooms that you might have to also equip with an ADA system? Let's say we're talking about a bunch of classrooms. Well, you got a bunch of classrooms going across a facility, and maybe FM's not the best, because FM's going to bleed into every other classroom down the road. So maybe we want to look at an infrared system. Maybe that would be better because it isolates it to that environment. All these different types of questions you throw out, you figure out where they are, where the budget is. That's always a question as well. That's how I usually will do it. And then at that point, then I can come up with a good option for the customer.
And I think those are all important factors to consider. We'll talk a little bit about, that's a lot to absorb and a lot of great information. We'll talk a little bit at the end here about, if you're new to these projects, where can you go to get some additional help and support as you consider all these things. I want to move to the topic of objections. So while we said that ALS systems are required in most public spaces in a lot of countries, there can still be some who object to investing in the best assistive listening system, or maybe placing those additional emitters, or having as many headsets as there, not just the minimum number, but more. So Ben, as you went through all this transformation that you did with the National Theater, did you get any resistance to the recommendations that you were trying to put in place, or those before you put in place? And how did you address those concerns?
Yeah, I mean, we did. It hasn't been a bad journey, really. It's gone very well. Most people are extremely enthusiastic about improving the services we offer. I have the advantage of having been here quite a long time and be able to think back to how things were when I arrived. And it was the thing that is most notable between now and then is how on board the sound team are with delivering this system as if it was as important as their main speaker system, and that is what they now do. And it's heartwarming to see how much they care about the system that we put in, and how much they care about getting that right. We really struggled initially, and obviously this was different staff over back then, but we really struggled to get people to make this part of their technical rehearsal, to make sure that they were providing a dedicated mix out the sound desk into the system, which is absolutely essential. Getting the audio in, getting good quality audio into any system you buy is so important, and that's where we're having the best reviews. So we really had to work hard at that, making it part of the process of rehearsing the show. And we also had to work hard to get the system checked with a walk round of all of the seats before every single performance. That's now a standard that the standard that we implement, and it really helps to ensure the system remains reliable and that we can pick up any problems which do occur as quickly as possible. We also are in the process of very soon having a repetitive bit of audio looping as part of the pre-show system state directly to the assisted listening system, so that the people who collect these headsets and other devices can walk into the theatre and sit down in their seat and know with absolute certainty that when the performance starts, they are going to receive the audio they're expecting. Because there's nothing worse than being sat in the middle of a row with no audio and not being able to fix it yourself. So the looping audio before the show is a thing we, to be fair, we should have done ages ago, but we're finally getting around to making that a standard for our performances. What else can I talk about in terms of that? We also had a bit of resistance, weirdly, with just finding a way of tracking the headsets to the customers. So we had to we've worked quite hard to streamline the method by which we know who's taken a headset, which headset they've taken, and so when we get to the end of the day and we think we might be missing some, we can look back and look at which ones weren't returned and who didn't return them, and then just very gently get in touch with them and say, I don't suppose you still got that in your bag or whatever, and most of the time we get them back, no trouble at all. So occasionally people will walk off with a headset. So in terms of resistance, so yeah, advocating access as just as important as the main speaker system has been the biggest challenge for us, but something I'm really pleased we've achieved, because it really shows how good it can get and how amazing experience that creates for the customer.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, what you're doing and with all the venues we work with is really best in class. So congratulations on doing it right and setting a high bar for all of us and letting us learn from you. James, question for you. There's a phrase that sometimes comes up around assistive listening system that make us around here cringe on the Williams side when we live to make spaces more inclusive. Sometimes as people are talking about the assistive listening system and are still in that, hey, just check the box mindset, we hear about value engineering. Well, we've overshot our budget in lots of areas and we really need to spend here and all that. So we need to value engineer the assistive listening system. So we'd like to get your, based on your reaction, get your thoughts on that and how you'd respond to someone who's seeing that as the best solution for assistive listening?
Well, of course, there's always someone going to have something lower priced or something out there. Everyone's always running to the race to the bottom. What kind of precedents are we setting here? You know, obviously we're trying to create an environment that's inclusive for everyone. If the person using the system is having a hard time to get the thing to connect, or having a hard time hearing with it, or not understanding how the unit goes on, that leads to a bad experience. And so what are we really value engineering? We're bringing down the cost of something that is going to cause more problems than they're worth. So what does that say about the venue and the system you're putting out there? I usually will stop. If you just look at the technologies, the different technologies, there's different price points based on the technology. So if they're really concerned over budget, that type of thing, well, that's why we have systems like the FM systems, where they're a lower price option. We know they're always rock solid. They're going to work. We don't have to worry about that. So instead of just value engineering based on price or product, sometimes the technology can dictate that too and help them with that. But more than, like I said, more than anything, it's the experience that we're selling, and that's what the facility is putting out there. And you know, if the facility doesn't think enough of the people coming in there that they want to invest in a decent system, that's on the facility, and that we try to talk them out of that, because it does create a bad experience for the end user.
Yeah, and that's, you would never do that in the rest of the AV system, right? And we need to get people to think the same way. And there are different systems. In Ben's case, he has some redundancy in the use of an infrared system as well as a loop system. Many know that Williams AV has manufactured induction loops for a long time, and I know we've got some friends on the call today from HLAA, and we're big advocates for loop, because one of the things that we hear over and over around the loop technology is that it is not only the most discreet option for someone to come in if they have a telecoil equipped hearing aid and hit it to enjoy the experience, but also the fact that that audio is being passed through a device that's specifically tuned for their particular hearing loss creates that kind of a great experience that we're all looking for. So I think you said it well, James. Different technologies will meet different requirements and price points. No one technology is perfect, so we can either help people align to the best technology for their space, or in Ben's case, look at multiple technologies to meet maybe different needs of the same audience. So thank you for sharing that. You know, as AV professionals, every time we complete any project that is maybe a little different than what we've done in the past, you always tend to reflect back on the work and think, well, boy, I wish I would have known those 2 or 3 things going in, right? That could have saved me a lot of time and headache. And so what I want to talk a little bit about, every technology has its pros and its cons, or the things that you need to pay attention to in order to make and get the most out of that particular technology solution. So I'll ask this question of both of you, and maybe start with you, Ben. What advice would you offer to others on the call who are looking to get more involved in assistive listening projects, and maybe what pitfalls to watch out for?
So I'd give the advice I'd give would be, firstly, to think about how the project can benefit more than those with the hearing impairment. Our experience has been that because we bought enough quantity of headsets, the number of people that take them and use them is way greater than the percentage we'd expect that actually are hearing impaired. Think about the ergonomics of the product you're buying, the thing you're giving out to the customer, because in our experience, it's important that it is tactile, or it's got some kind of audible feedback on it, because a lot of the people with hearing impairment that do advertise themselves as such do often have visual impairment as well, and not being able to find their way around the product by feel or with any kind of audible feedback is a problem for them, and it certainly drew the line through a lot of products that we were looking at that didn't have that option. So when we were choosing what we were going to put in, we very carefully we excluded the products that for example, where the channel select was only visible on the screen, or done with a push, or the volume was a rotary knob that went round and round and round. You didn't really know whether it had gone to full volume or not. So we were very keen to make sure that was right. And yeah, I've already highlighted this, but do consider the disappointment for the users who only discover that the system isn't working once they're in their seat and the performance has started. So when you're choosing a system, think about how you're going to maintain it and how you're going to ensure that it's working every time, because that's ruined somebody's evening potentially if it's not working.
Right. James, same question for you. Any additional thoughts on advice you would give, or things in your experience implementing different technologies into different venues, things to be aware of?
Well, first thing I always tell people, especially someone who's wanting to get involved with doing more of these types of projects, learn your technologies. Learn about each of the technologies, how they all work, how they can work together, like Ben was talking about with the different tech, or how they work individually. That really makes a huge difference in the quality of what you're going to be talking to people about. It also helps with the advocate. I mean, I'm an advocate. I wear hearing aids. I know what it feels like and what it is like to have a hearing issue. I've had it all my life. So when I'm talking to people, it's about getting a passion behind it too. So they're looking for solutions for their customers, and that can come in a number of different ways. Keep in mind, even the best sound systems in the world are not the same as having a hearing assist in your ears. So we need to keep that in mind. So it actually, to me, it's always been a kind of a welcome challenge to find new technologies to help people hear better. It's not always about, the biggest sound system, the loudest sound system. It's the articulation and the tonal qualities of the system. That is much more important than the volume of the system. So those types of things, and I get a passion about that. So yeah, I would definitely advise learning the technologies to learn some of that.
Thank you for sharing that. The word that you'd hear around our office daily, if not hourly, is intelligibility. How do we maximize that so that people can truly enjoy the experience? So yeah, thank you for sharing those. We've got a few more minutes before we open things up to some questions and answers. I know those have been flowing in quite a bit, and I may have someone join us here in a minute to share some of those questions, and we'll field those. But before we do that, I want to talk about additional opportunities that come along with doing implementing assistive listening systems. So a question for both of you. Ben, we'll go to you first. Are there things that, in addition to doing the assistive listening system, if you're an integrator coming in, or where else beyond just the space that you're focusing on, could you look for other opportunities?
I've got a few examples of stuff that we've managed to not miss, and some stuff that we had missed that we've now improved upon. So there's a lot of other spaces in the building. Some are right on top of each other, and so we've found that installed induction loops aren't going to work in those spaces. So we're currently looking at putting the Auracast technology in there. And we've also identified that the headsets that we have available in the foyers for collection before the show are extremely useful on the latecomers televisions that we provide for anyone who's late for the performance, who has to wait outside until we can get them into the auditorium. They can watch on a television, watch the performance on a television until they go in. And we fitted little infrared radiators to the bottom of those one of the televisions there, and so that they can wear the headset and listen to the performance through the headset. We've also bought into, many years ago, we bought into a system that can go be taken around the building with our tour guides, so they can wear a microphone, and the people that are being taken around the building can wear a receiver if they require some assisted listening from the tour guide. We've also talked about doing things outside in the spaces just outside the building, where infrared, as you can imagine, is not so good because of the daylight. So we've looked at Wi-Fi transmission for that, where I would highlight that in terms of intelligibility, it's important to think about what you're putting in due to the delay on the system. If you're putting in a feed that's a signal that's the live feed that's coming out of the speakers, then anyone using something that's got a delay on it is going to hear both of those things, and that might cause the intelligibility to be significantly reduced. If they're, however, listening to an audio description of what's happening, then it would be fine, because the latency of, say, 100 milliseconds isn't going to affect their experience of the audio description. And that's probably about it. So we try and provide the access outside of the spaces if we can. And the advantage of the portable and touring systems such as Auracast or the tour guide system that we've looked at, that we've bought into, is that we can also offer them outside of our building for going out on tour or going to other spaces, other venues, if we can spare it.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing that. James, how about you? Any other opportunities that are created when you're in talking to somebody about an assistive listening system that integrators should look for as extensions of the ALS?
There's a number of different avenues you can go down. One avenue, language interpretation. So, you're in a space, a house of worship. We could have a simultaneous separate language going on simultaneously. So hearing assist works great for the people who have hearing loss, but it also can be a great tool for people who have perfectly good hearing. So whether that's through language interpretation, like I was just talking about, or in a classroom situation, it allows a student to immerse themselves into the class more without having the outside interference going on. So things like that. I would also say for theatrical two-way communication. So yeah, we're broadcasting to the audience, we're giving them a hearing assist system, but now we have the theater director talking to the front of house and to the lighting guy, and so we're using a completely separate system that is allowing for communication between the production people. So that's another avenue we can walk down. Another thing I think a lot of people forget is, at least with Williams, we have a lot of these combo systems too that can do multiple different technologies simultaneously. So in the case of like our FM Plus, we have a system that will broadcast FM and Wi-Fi simultaneously. Well, there's a lot of benefits to that, as we all know. So I think a lot of times people pigeonhole themselves into one technology. They don't realize there's other things that you could be doing simultaneously, very similar to what Ben's already doing on a larger scale, but we can do that even in a small venue as well.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. So we've got roughly 11 minutes or so remaining. I'm going to switch over here. I see some questions popping up in the Q&A. I'm going to grab a couple of those and just read them here for some feedback. So thanks to those who've submitted some questions in the box. So besides theater, we've talked about that a little bit. Are there other applications that we see as growing markets for assistive listening? So I'll share a little bit from the Williams perspective on what we've seen a lot of interest in. The education market is a big one right now. There's as our population becomes more and more diverse, and this classroom sizes are growing, there's a growing need for both assistive listening systems, sound field systems, and interpretation systems. So K-12 and higher education has been an area where we're getting lots of inquiries in lots of spaces within a particular school facility. So we are working in stadiums, in the performing arts venues, in the cafeteria, the gymnasiums, anywhere where the large groups are gathering, on the higher ed side, in the lecture halls and such, and even down to the classroom level. So some of you may have seen that Williams AV, as the leader in assistive communications, recently brought a new brand into our stable, and that is called Teach Logic. So we are now involved in the classroom audio for both just good teaching practices that drive understanding and improve student performance, but also addressing the needs in the classroom for students with hearing loss. I'll say that we're seeing increases, certainly a lot of work in courtrooms. Courtrooms are not, it doesn't matter whether the courtroom has a PA system or not. A courtroom has to have, in the US, has to have an assistive listening system, so that is a must. Lots of work in houses of worship to make those spaces inclusive, and in corporations. So even though many corporations are not required, because they're not necessarily open to the public, not required to have assistive listening systems, they're trying to make spaces inclusive to all their employees and the business partners. So those are some areas that we see growing. Ben, feel free to weigh in, or James, where else are you doing work outside of theater?
I see a lot of it. Go for it, Ben.
You go, James.
I've been lately. I've been seeing. You just touched on banks. Banking is definitely always something I see. Courtrooms, definitely. We see courtrooms that growing all the time. That's always something that's happening. But entertainment, just indoor, outdoor entertainment venues, you know, whether it's, it doesn't even have to be a theatrical thing. It could be more of a, gaming and things like that. There's a lot of different potential. There's, fitness rooms and fitness workout areas and sports bars and, like with our Wi-Fi systems, that works great. And like you can broadcast, multiple different channels off of multiple different feeds simultaneously. People can listen in. So there's a lot of opportunity there we see.
Great. Anything you want to add, Ben?
I think I've already touched on it, to be fair. It's, the other areas are the where we do tours around the building, when we put the system out in. We do sometimes you put the system into slightly different environments to facilitate those requirements. I've seen a few questions in the question thing that I can answer when ready, though.
Sure, go ahead.
So there was a question about, in live theatre, how do you get a good audio feed into the assisted listening system, assuming that you don't mic every actor in the National Theatre? I'm afraid the answer is that we do pretty much. It does depend by show, but the majority of our shows, the actors are wearing microphones, and what we make sure that we do is create a dedicated mix, which is ensuring that those microphones go to the assisted listening system. And we put in a little bit of DSP. I'm going to get a little bit technical here, where we have microphones that are fixed in the theatre, and they live in the theatre at all times. So you can always hear what's happening in the theatre unless we've decided otherwise. And as soon as the desk feed goes live, those microphones are automatically ducked by putting that feed in as a side chain to the ducker. So that means that the fixed mics don't form part of the mix that the audience hears. As soon as the desk feed goes live, they get only the radio mics and anything else we feel that they need, which means they get the closest sound, the most intelligible sound we can possibly give them at any time. If the actors aren't radio mic'd, we do our level best to improve the audio going into the system with stage front mics or anything else we can position elsewhere in the environment. Hopefully that answered one of the questions there.
Yeah, thank you.
There was also a little question about whether you can equip the equipment, whether the equipment can have neck loops and headphones as standard. Now, the product we bought from Williams does that. The RX20 is an infrared headset that has earbuds as part of its construction, which just goes straight into the ears, but it does have a little mini jack on the bottom. In one of our theatres that doesn't have an installed induction loop, we use that mini jack to connect a neck loop to the same receiver that we use in the other theatres, which means that across the board we're using the same headset, but in one of the theatres we can actually add a personal induction loop if required using the same headset. And another question was about Auracast and what experience we'd had. Well, yes, we have had some bad experiences with Wi-Fi and latency to the extent where even though the product we have bought does have Wi-Fi as an option, we don't offer it to our audience because the latency is too great for us to be comfortable. So far, having tested the Auracast products, I'm very impressed with the very low delay. It's around 30 milliseconds, and that's easily within bounds for a comfortable experience for the user. And we have already started to come across equipment, including some hearing aids, very few at the moment, but some hearing aids that are compatible with that system. So it's looking good for that concept.
Yeah, thank you. I'll make another comment about the Auracast technology. So for those who may not have heard this is the evolution of the Bluetooth standards. So Auracast is a brand name for the next generation of Bluetooth that is capable of one-to-many. So while most of us think about using our phone paired to our car or phone to headphones, this next generation of Bluetooth will have the ability to broadcast from one central point to many people within a space, and starts to overcome the previous limitations of distance and battery consumption and other things. So we think this technology holds great potential. We have shared at industry events such as ISE in Barcelona and at Infocom just this past June that we are actively in development. We think the technology has great potential, and one of the reasons it does is that there are both consumer devices as well as most of the major hearing aid companies who are now rallying around what is Auracast. So it's still early days. There are the beginnings of devices equipped with the right chipsets to support this, making their way into the market, and consumers are just starting to learn what this is, but know that Williams has always been on the forefront of taking emerging technology and the capabilities it brings and applying it to assistive communications. So we are in active development. If you come see us at most trade shows, you're going to see and learn more about our development with plans to introduce a product next year. So stay tuned for more on that. I'm sure as there is more to share and more statistics about the number of people who have that capability in their device, we will be sure to share those, as we are partners with the Bluetooth SIG or Special Interest Group. So we have about 2 minutes left. I would like to do a couple quick things here. First of all, I want to thank our special guests, Ben and James. Thank you for sharing your time today. Thank you for sharing your expertise. I hope others have found it as useful as I have. I'm going to ask our marketing team here to put a slide back up on the screen. So for all of you who spent some time today with us, and we wanted to offer you this exclusive guide. So we've created this handbook, integrator's handbook to navigating assistive listening. So you can scan the QR code on your screen, and that will allow you to download this exclusive guide that talks about many of these factors and which technologies fit best in different spaces, and some of the factors that Ben and James articulated for all of us today. So thank you for spending your time with us today on making spaces more inclusive. And know that there is a team here at Williams that live and breathe this every day. We have our technical services and design team. We have customer service advocates. We have your sales leaders in each area, and all of us would love the opportunity to talk to you if there's a project that you might be working on where you could use some guidance. So a great way to reach out to us is right there on the bottom of your screen. Email at info@williamsav, or give us a call directly at 800-328-6190. So James, Ben, thank you again for your time. Thank you to our marketing team for putting together a great session today. And thanks to everybody who shared part of your day with us.